Topic of this video is LSD. LSD is one of the most famous and most widely used psychedelics of modern time. Before I go, this video I have not prepared for this inside of my head at all, so this is going to be possibly all over the place, kind of characteristic of how LSD can be. Anyway, so in other videos I talk about how like the heroin market is saturated with fentanyl, and the ecstasy market is saturated by a host of research chemicals. Same thing unfortunately happens with psychedelics, especially synthetic psychedelics like LSD. You don't know for sure that you're getting LSD, and there are some nefarious imposters out there. So you really have to do your research, know your source. I personally would suggest buying from the dark web instead of in person, unless you really know your source in person, because stuff that you might buy at festivals, it could be anything. And, there's psychedelics vary widely in terms of dose, in terms of potency, in terms of duration. Some psychedelics can last like up to 24 hours. Not good if you think you're going to trip for 5 hours. And yeah, just different ones, Psychedelics have a spectrum that I like to put on one end being the most deep and profound, healing, therapeutic, and then the other end being essentially like eye candy. And I'll make a couple psychedelic videos coming up soon because I have been neglecting it. And psychedelics are like my favorite drug. So, yeah. So LSD is also known by the slang term acid. If anyone doesn't know, those are the same thing. LSD, in my opinion, is way to the eye candy end of that spectrum. I do not find LSD to be very profound or very deep. That's not to say that I don't like it and admire it and think it has a lot of utility, but it doesn't do to me what psychedelics like mushrooms do. It just lacks the depth that something like mushrooms has, in my opinion. It affects different people different ways, and if we look at history, we look at the hippies, we look at music, we look at arts, there's been a lot of people who have been profoundly affected in a positive way by LSD. But I'm just talking for myself, LSD has always been more of an eye candy experience. So, first, LSD is one of those ones that, let's just get this out of the way, because, yes, I use psychedelics. I'm clean from heroin, I'm clean from alcohol, I'm clean from benzos, I'm clean from all of that stuff. But I still occasionally use psychedelics. I'm able to use psychedelics responsibly in quote-unquote recovery. I define recovery to be something that can exist alongside responsible psychedelic use. Psychedelic use can help one stay off of hard drugs if the psychedelics are respected. Not everyone has to agree with me, but that's just what works for me. So yeah, I've used LSD. The last time I used LSD was probably about 18 months ago. And yeah, it's the way that I like to take LSD is if I take too much at once, it gives me anxiety as it kicks in. And it's too overwhelming as it kicks in. It's a very chaotic start to the drug if you take it all at once. I definitely suggest titrating upwards, titrating might not be the correct word here, but stepping up. If you want to take a tab and a half of LSD, take a quarter tab every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes, or even every 30 minutes. I find that smooths out the onset anxiety, and just introduces the trip a lot more gradual, so it's more comfortable. And then the other thing I like to do is redose. I do like redosing LSD. What I like to do is take it for, let the trip be right at about the point where it's starting to taper down slowly, and then take another dose and then take a stronger dose, because I feel like if I could do that, the second win that I get, it doesn't contain like any anxiety. It's just all positive vibes. Um, but when I describe it as like eye candy, I mean something like mushrooms is not, a mushroom trip is not about, I mean, yes, you get sensual stuff going on. You see stuff, like all of your senses change in different ways, but that's not the main focus of the trip. The main level is a mental, um, just a transformation of your mind and your thinking, and the sensual stuff is like a byproduct of that, if that makes sense. Whereas with acid, the sensual stuff is the trip. The trip is the world and reality taking on that Picasso, like that impressionistic, like um, art overlay that we all know. Just Google search LSD effects, and everyone kind of knows what. I mean, those things do hit it pretty close. I'm not gonna make a what does it feel like to do acid video, or really like you cannot make those what does it feel like to be high on any psychedelic videos. There's no way to describe this for someone who has never done it. It's just not possible. So I'm not even gonna try. Everyone that I've known who has like taken psychedelics after I've gotten to know them, that everybody agrees like you cannot prepare yourself for this. You just have to experience it. And so yeah, I'm not even gonna try. But like I like LSD, once you get over the initial anxiety, it's a nice like, I want to say that LSD is a sunset drug, whereas mushrooms are a sunrise drug. I know that might not make sense, but that's how I interpret it. LSD is a drug made for summer twilight, and being outdoors, exploring, and it's not like, it's something that the mind isn't overworking, so you can wander and you can look at stuff and enjoy it and all of that stuff. Whereas, like, yeah, other psychedelics, it's very, very, very intense. But yeah, like it's the thing. I mean, psychedelics are healing on many different levels. But one of the like lower levels on how they're healing is like, I remember like the last time I took LSD, one thing that I did was this was when I was still taking care of my mother. She's in a nursing home now, but I was still taking care of her at this point. And I went to a field and just picked her a bunch of wildflowers and took them to her. And, she was bedridden essentially at the time, and she just loved them. Like, it was the best thing that happened to her for a long time. And, like, just simple acts like that we just are too busy to do most of the time. Like, little acts like that, like, that's what you want to do when you're on LSD. Like, you see, like, that modern societal life has glossed over little nice gestures like that you can do for people. And it's sad. It really is sad, because, like, we can just talk about the concept of giving another human being flowers. Like, how do we think about giving someone flowers in this society? Well, it's got some thoughts that like would go through my mind. Let's say that I wanted to give a girl flowers. Like, yeah, you get that whole stuff of like, girl one's gonna be like, ew, flowers, that's so cheesy. Do something else that it's original. And then another girl might be like, why haven't you gotten me flowers yet? Like, you're supposed to get a girl flowers by the time that you. And then there's the whole thing of like the whole paradox of a rose, where a girl gets a rose from an attractive guy and it's sweet. A girl gets a rose from an unattractive guy and it's creepy. Like, we overcomplicate the act of giving another person flowers so much. All of this societal nonsense gets, trumps the essence of what's going on, which is human beings on a very, very, very primitive level, like looking at flowers. Flowers are pretty. They're aesthetically pleasing. So sharing that immediate reaction of looking at a flower and enjoying how it makes you feel, sharing that with someone else, I mean, that's all it really is. That's what it should be. Um, and you see this kind of thing so clearly when you're on LSD that like and that's how it can be healing, because it can take these things that we overcomplicate so much in our lives and strip away all of the nonsense and just see the intrinsic value of actions that, you know, for what they are. And um same thing with like taking pictures and stuff. Like, you know, we get so caught up in like trying to take the perfect picture, perfect angle and everything. Whereas like every picture that you take of nature when you're on LSD looks like it is a masterpiece. I mean, taking pictures of the sky and the sunset and everything last time I tripped, um, and I was like showing them to a couple friends of mine. They're like, "Yeah, well, these are just normal pictures of outside." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, the world's painted by the LSD brush right now." And they're like, "Oh, we get it, we get it, we get it." Yeah, like the world just, I mean, it's such a beautiful thing to have those psychedelic effects imposed on the world. Um, it's just so soothing to just see society through the psychedelic lens when you're not anxious. Um, and yeah, and like just also like people say that psychedelics take them back to their childhood, kind of like related to the whole like overcomplication of everything that we do. The joy that you experience outdoors on psychedelics, acid included, like it takes you back to your childhood. It makes you realize that the things that you feel like you've outgrown, or the things that when people say, "Oh, I miss being a kid because when I was a kid I didn't have any cares in the world and I could just enjoy things and enjoy," you still can. And psychedelics show you this. Psychedelics hammer that point home, that the reason why you can't enjoy the world like you did when you were a kid is because of all of the nonsense that life imposes on us. And psychedelics show you that it is still possible to break through the nonsense. And if you take something from a psychedelic trip, it's one of the many things that you can take from it is that you still have the power to enjoy life like a child. And, you know, because you think of like two little kids on the playground, and one little kid hands the other little kid a flower, and the other one like smiles. Like, we can still do that. That can still happen between human beings. And it just gets lost, and that's sad. And then like this also just like, and it just, it then, just to get political for a second, it does make me really sad, because like we have people locked in cages for distributing LSD. We have people locked in cages for decades for distributing LSD, for wanting to share something that's so beautiful and innocent and therapeutic and helpful, to the extent where I can almost say that like psychedelics are the only thing that I could possibly imagine that could actually bring about world peace. If we had a massive social movement of responsible and accepted psychedelic use, that's the only path to world peace that I think there ever possibly could be. And as humanity, we decide to lock proponents of that path into cages. And it's one of the biggest crimes humanity commits against itself. And furthermore, like, it's committed by people the people who were closing and locking the doors to the cages have never taken psychedelics. And I can guarantee you that all of those policymakers and people in, you know, law enforcement or whatever, who think they're doing the right thing by locking psychedelic users up in cages and distributors and everything, one trip. All it would take would be one trip. They would start crying. They would open all the doors, and it would just like, and it's same thing with like people who will like criticize oh, you're just a druggie because you want to take your psychedelic drugs. You're just making excuses to do drugs. Like, I kind of understand because, like, when I was, I mean, I can kind of understand, again, when you just don't know, but, and like, it just gets frustrating because you just want to, like, shake people and be like, you don't know. You don't know. I know it sounds crazy, but you just don't know. Yeah, okay, so that's 15 minutes. So that's a little bit much, but, yeah, more psychedelic videos coming up.